Hey guys, it's Anna, and today I'm working on a Word document to make it accessible for our school website, and I thought this would be a good example to demo for you how I do that. So when I open this Word document, the first thing that I noticed about it is it has these rectangles drawn down the side. They're wanting this document to be a checklist, and they've used the drawing tool to draw in rectangles. Now, this is not the most accessible way to do a checklist. It would be better to make this a bulleted list and define the bullets to look like checkboxes. So we'll do that. The second thing I noticed, when I opened this document in Word, the navigation pane automatically opened here. If you don't see the navigation pane, you can go to the View tab. Whoops. You can go to the View tab and click check the box for navigation pane to see that. I noticed there are no headings in this document. So to be accessible, every document needs at least one heading. So this should be a heading in this document, and it's not defined as a heading. So that's the second thing. Third, I noticed that there is an image here, and usually when I receive a document from another staff member, the image does not have alt text, so I'll need to check that. I noticed that there are carriage return spaces between each paragraph. Accessibility-wise, that's not the best way to put space between paragraphs because each one of those is tagged as a paragraph and it's a paragraph that's empty. So I'm going to change the spacing there between paragraphs. Then I noticed here we've got a list of names, counselor names, and then the last names associated with them, and these are separated with tabs and some of them with the space bar. There are different amounts of space between each one. This will read better on a screen reader if there is one tab separating each item from the last names. So I'll show you how we're going to do that so that we define the tabs to line them all up with only having to hit the tab key one time. Another way to do this would be, instead of having the text separated by tabs, you could have everything in a list and then break it into two columns. That's not the best way to do this particular example because when you break text into columns, the default reading order will be to read the whole first column and then read the whole second column. And I actually want it to read the counselor's name and then the last names that are associated with that counselor in that order. So if I keep the tab, it will keep the reading order a little neater there. I also noticed there are a few places in this document that have multiple spaces with the space bar instead of just using one space after each period. So I'm going to fix that. And then last of all, always on a Word document, I need to define a title so that when I turn it into a PDF, Adobe will know where to look for the title to assign a title to it officially. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to do is fix these checkboxes. So I'm going to select all the text except for the title there. And I'm going to make a bulleted list. And the reason I selected all the text, even though I don't want this segment here to be a bulleted list, although it could be, is that I want this whole checklist to be one list that's defined together. And this section with the names to just be an interruption in that one list. And so I can go ahead and define the whole thing as a list at once. I'm going to change the type of bullet I'm using. I'm going to change it to a checkbox bullet. Now, when you click the little drop down here, if you don't see an option for checkboxes, you can go to Define New Bullet, click on Symbol, and choose Wingdings as your font. And you should be able to find the checkbox somewhere in that group of symbols. So I noticed when I made this a bulleted list, it indented the text in. That's going to make this document longer than it was. So I want to keep it close to how they had it originally. So I want to fix that indent so that it's not, the whole checklist isn't indented on the page. I don't really want to change the indent on these items significantly. So what I'm going to do is unselect the text. I'm going to click on one of the check boxes, and that selects the whole group of bullets that are related to each other. And I'm going to hit the decrease indent button up here in the paragraph group on the Home tab. And that's going to move that whole list back towards the margin. So that's a little more similar to how it was before. Next, I'm going to get rid of these rectangles. You can click on each one and hit the delete key on your keyboard. You can also do the select tool up here and choose select objects and then draw a box around them so that you can delete multiple at one time. So I'm going to go through and do that. Oops, you do have to do the select objects each time that you want to use it. All right, I'm going to go back up, and the next thing I'm going to do is set a heading. So I'm going to select this text up here, which should be my heading 1. I don't want to change the style so that it looks different. I want to keep their document looking about the same as it started. So I'm going to right-click on heading 1 and choose Update Heading 1 to match selection, so that heading 1 now looks like what they already had up here as their heading. Notice that it added a heading now in my navigation pane. And also, if I put my mouse over that heading, I see the little triangle that will let me collapse or expand that section. Now, this document is only going to have one heading, but if you've got a more extensive document with a lot of different headings of different levels, this navigation pane over here is going to end up looking like an outline of your document, and it can be helpful to either use the navigation pane or to use those little twisties to collapse down each section, just to make sure that all the text associated with that heading actually goes with that heading. The next thing I'm going to do is add some alt text to this image. So I'm going to right click the image and choose Edit Alt Text. I'm going to change it from being just a file location to a description of what it is. And then the next thing I want to do is fix some paragraph spacing. So we've got, they've like hit enter twice to put space between the paragraphs. That's going to tag each one of those as an empty paragraph. So I want to get rid of that and use paragraph spacing instead. So I'm going to go on each one of these and use either backspace or delete to get rid of those extra spaces. And as I get to the last space here, I want to check and see what their original spacing was so that I can match it. So this is an empty paragraph where text can go, and the text size is set to 11. So there would be 11-point text here if I were typing, and 11 points will be the spacing between these paragraphs approximately. So I'm going to get rid of the last one. I did notice at the bottom there were some extra returns too. I can kind of highlight the text to see. So I think I've gotten rid of all the extras there, and I want to go through and add line spacing or paragraph spacing. So I'm going to select all of this. I'm not selecting this little list of names because those are considered separate paragraphs and I don't want them to be spaced out that much. So I'm going to select everything above that. I'm going to go to the paragraph settings, a little pop-out icon here, and I'm going to make it the space after 11 points. And I want to uncheck this box that says don't add space between paragraphs of the same style. Because some of these paragraphs are the same style and I do want them spaced out. So I'm going to click OK. That adds some spacing back. It looks like I need a little bit more spacing under the heading because this first paragraph needs to fall below where the image is. So I'm going to select just that section, go back to paragraph settings and make that a little bit bigger. Let's try, whoops, maybe 18 point. Nope, a little bit bigger. All right, that's pretty good. So I did 24 there. All right, and then these remaining paragraphs underneath that list of names, I'm going to do the same. paragraph settings, and I'm going to do 11 points in between and uncheck this don't add space box. All right, so that makes that a little better like it was. And then I do want there to be a space between this last name in this list and the next checklist item. So I'm going to select that item, which is its own paragraph, and I'm going to add 11 points after that. Oops, I forgot to uncheck the box. All right, I'm going to take the bullets off of this, which I added before. I think on their original they did not have a space here, so I'm going to change this paragraph so that it has no space after to keep the names up with the checklist item that goes with it. And then the next thing I want to do is work on this section here. So there are different amounts of spacing in between, and if you turn on the paragraph marks or the symbols, you can actually see like this one has a whole bunch of spaces, that's what those dots represent, and then 2 tabs. So I'm going to turn that back off, but what I want to do is have 1 tab between each name and the last names that are associated. So what I'm going to do is delete the extra stuff until they come together, and then just hit the tab key once. I'm going to do that for each one, and you'll notice as I'm going, they're not lining up, but I'm going to fix that in just a second. Oops. Now I'm going to select all of these, and what I want to do is set a tab stop so that that first tab, that only tab that I hit, all lines up in the same space. I'm going to use the ruler up here to set my tab stop. If you can't see your ruler, go to View and check the box for ruler. I see there's already a tab stop here. So, that's what this little elbow is. I'm going to click and drag that off to get rid of it. And then I want to add my own tab stop. So I want to make sure here I'm on a tab symbol. This is defining what you're going to add to your ruler. So I'm on a left tab here. That's what that little thing that looks like an L or an elbow is. And I'm going to click not up here on the white part, but on the gray right below it to place a tab. That lines everything up. And if I need to, I can click that and drag it until I get them exactly lined up how I want. Okay, so that's done. The next thing I want to do is look at the places where I have extra spaces in this document. So I'm going to put my cursor up at the top. I'm going to click Replace up here in the Editing group on the Home tab. And when under Find What, I'm going to hit the space bar twice, put 2 spaces, and replace with 1 space. So everywhere that there are 2 spaces in this document, I want to replace it with just 1 space. I'm going to hit Replace All. It made 19 replacements. And just in case, it could be that some places in this document had 3 or 4 or 5 spaces. So I'm going to do that search or replace again until I get 0 results back. Okay, so I'm going to do replace. There were 6 more, so those were places where it had more than just 2 spaces. And I'm going to do it one more time. 0 replacements. So there. Now I've got only 1 space between each period. The last thing that I want to do is to make sure this document has a title. So the title is defined in Word in a strange place. Most people don't know it's there, so most documents end up not having a title. So I'm going to go to File and Info, and then here under Properties, I'm going to add a title. And this should just be some sort of description of what this document is. So I'm going to do DE for dual enrollment, procedures, checklist. I'm not going to put the year on it, even though the name of this document has a year on it, because I don't want to have to update the title every year. They'll change the file name every year, but the title will stay the same. So I'm going to go back to my document. I'm going to save. And now I am ready to convert this to a PDF and do an accessibility check in the PDF. So I'll do that. Let's go to File, Save as Adobe PDF. Okay, so I've got my PDF created here. I'm going to go in the side panel to Accessibility and choose Accessibility Check. Click Start Checking, and it's run my checker for me. I've got 3 issues. You're going to see these same 3 issues on any document that you make from Word. First is title. I know we entered a title on the Word document, but for some reason when they save over, Adobe does not apply that title, but it's aware that it's there. So if I right click title failed and choose fix, it auto applies the title I already typed. Every document will need these 2 checks, logical reading order and color contrast, because Adobe cannot check for that. It needs a human to check. I'm not worried about color contrast because this document is only black and white. So I'm going to look at logical reading order. So to do that, I'm going to click on the order panel here on the side. And it's going to show me what order all these items are in, and what this is the order they would read in if a screen reader was reading this page. So I've got all this is pretty much in order, and I notice as it reads a name here in the counselor list, it's going to read the last names associated with it next, straight down, and all of these on the second page, the numbering restarts on each page are in order. I noticed that this image is tagged to be read last on the page, which is fine. It's not essential to the content of the page. So it looks like everything is in order. So this document is ready and accessible, and I'm going to save it. And it's ready to be posted online. Let me know if you have any questions, guys. Thanks for hanging with me for almost 20 minutes for this demo. Bye, guys.